flying this weekend doesn't take long enough already. The Service Employees Union is trying to disrupt one of the busiest travel days of the year at LAX Airport in LA. More than 1,000 protesters were out blocking traffic, trying to prevent travelers from getting to the airport. Isn't that nice? People were told to allow an extra hour and a half to get there. An extra hour and a half on top of all the hours you're supposed to get there ahead of time. With me now, with both sides of the debate, Phil Dine, author of State of the Unions, and Neal Asbury, CEO of the Legal Companies. Gentlemen, welcome to the debate. Phil, I'm going to start with you because as we watched all the video today of protesters out there trying to wreck the day in travel, people got really frustrated. What would you say to defend them?
Speaking of the holiday, good to be with you, and please excuse my pre-holiday garb here.
You look wonderful.
Thank you. What I'd say is that I think we need to separate the goals and the tactics. I think the goals are entirely reasonable. These are hardworking people who are not asking for more. They're simply trying to defend their standard of living, and in particular, they're trying to prevent the contractor, who is now their employer, from taking away all their health care benefits next month. So I think their goals are eminently reasonable. Their tactics can be debated. You know, first of all, this is, as you said, SEIU is a union here. They are an aggressive, in-your-face union. That bothers a lot of people. At the same time, they're one of the fastest growing and largest unions in the country, so that's working for them.
Neal, let me ask you, I mean, the issue here, you say they're fighting to not have their health care taken away. I mean, Obamacare is on its way. So why are they worried about their health care? Everyone's going to have health care. The health care crisis is over.
Well, I don't think that's it at all. And the unions have to reinvent themselves in order to stay relevant. But is this what they want to do when millions of Americans are trying to get to their loved ones? This is the image that they want to have? You know, I had someone on my radio show just recently, he had to deal with the SEIU. They had a campaign to unionize his workforce of 3,000 employees. And what he went through, the intimidation, the harassment, the vandalism, he was scared for his family. I got to tell you, the tactics that they're using at SEIU, they're not just aggressive, but they're controversial. Blackmailing that I've heard about. And what you're seeing, the workers that they're supposed to be trying to get out on the street to demonstrate, they don't want to go on strike. They don't want to demonstrate. They've had to bus people in to stand on the streets. It's not even the workers that they're so-called unionized that's out there.
Phil, you know, one thing that I always think of when I see these pictures or when I hear the story about the folks at Walmart and they talk about the conditions here is that no one's forcing anyone to have these jobs. And there are millions of people out there today on Thanksgiving Eve who are unemployed and would love to have their jobs. So if their jobs are so terrible and they're being treated so poorly, no one's forcing them to do them.
With all due respect, I don't think it's much of an argument to say that basically gives an open door to employers to do whatever they want, decimate worker standards of living, and saying, well, you could have another job if you'd like. And I want to go back to something. Because
nobody has to work for them. Like, if an employer is really bad, then don't work for them, and no one will want to work for them if they're a horrible employer and they're really abusing their employees like that.
I'd like to go back briefly to what my fellow debater here said. He talked about unions blackmailing and so on. Even under the administration, the NLRB of George W. Bush, the NLRB found that more than 32,000 workers a year were fired improperly in this country every year for simply trying to exercise their rights to form a union. So it cuts both ways.
Well, the tactics that they're using is just pure thuggery. And we talked about Walmart, 1.3 million employees, and the unions have been trying to get them forever, and yet they still won't unionize. Maybe it's because private employers are taking care of their people. Maybe they're getting better wages. The folks at LAX said that they paid a lot of money and they got nothing, and then now they're getting better health care than they were getting when the union was providing it for them. So how do you explain that?
Phil, let me ask you, because you raised a valid point that maybe their tactics are what needs to change. When you look at, you know, what's happening at Walmart, they're out picketing and trying to stop people, but really customers, even they may be sympathetic with them, but they just kind of go around them because they still want the doorbuster deals that are inside. Here at LAX, we're looking at these huge crowds and, you know, what they're doing to sort of stop passengers, and it's unclear that these tactics are necessarily putting forth the face and the sympathy that they need. And you see what happened at Hostess, and as a result, no one has a job. You know, I mean, the Hostess thing just totally blew up to the point where not only did they, I'm not sure they represented the interest very well, because at the end of the day, every single person ended up unemployed. Do you think that unions need to have a fundamental change in their tactics to survive and thrive the way you believe they should?
Well, two things real briefly. One, if it were really the case that that unions serve no purpose, why is it?
I didn't say they serve no purpose. I say, do they need to recalibrate their tactics in order to be more effective going forward?
Well, I was going to respond to a prior point, but fine. You know, it's no accident there's a multi-billion-dollar union avoidance industry in this country that teaches employers how to skirt the law and keep out unions, and that's a problem. But to your point, Melissa, I do completely agree. Not just tactics, but even more broadly, unions need to do a much better job of communicating to the public why they still matter, why a strong labor movement is in the national interest. There are very good common sense arguments that can be made. For example, historically, every time there's been a strong labor movement, we've had an expanding middle class, and the converse is true. But labor's not done a good job communicating that to the public. So therefore, when people see something like what's happening at LAX, they don't understand the context, and they just are bothered by being disrupted, and that's understandable.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on. Have a wonderful holiday.
Thank you.
All right.